What if the most clever men in the room are the ones you never notice? What if the game of power was never about force, but concealment? You've been taught that to win, you must be seen. That dominance requires noise, declarations, flamboyant displays of knowledge, influence, strength. But what if that very visibility is the leash, the chain, the trap? To outsmart everyone, you must first unlearn what everyone has learned. Power that can be seen is power that can be predicted. Power that can be predicted is power that can be neutralized. They say, show your work, share your process, speak your truth. I say, if they know how you think, they can learn how to undo you. Now listen carefully, because those who master this principle do not climb the ladder of power, they become the architects of the entire staircase. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." But what he didn't say, yet always implied, is that the most dangerous men never need the title at all. They move in silence. Their value is never announced. Their wins are delivered like whispers in the dark. And while others beg for approval and recognition, they quietly reshape the field of play. Think of the lion, loud, majestic, obvious. You admire it, you hear it roar, you know where it is. But think again, what animal does the lion fear? It's not the elephant, it's not the crocodile, it's the serpent. The one that moves without sound, without signal, without ego. Because the moment you see it, it's already too late. This is the art of invisibility, not as weakness, but as strategy. In today's world, men are addicted to broadcasting, every move documented, every thought converted into content, every strategy turned into a tutorial. Transparency has become a virtue, and that precisely is why it is now a vulnerability. You tell them how you think, you tell them how you feel, you tell them what you want, what you fear, what you plan, and then you wonder why you're always being countered. Let me ask you something. If you walk into a room and everyone already knows what you'll say, how you'll respond, what you'll tolerate, then what power do you actually have? None. You've become a glass box, beautiful perhaps, but powerless. The man who outsmarts everyone doesn't arrive loudly. He enters quietly, observes deeply, speaks rarely, and when he moves, it is already decided, not by negotiation, but by inevitability. I once met a man who ran an empire, not from a podium, not from a boardroom, but from the back of a quiet cafe. No logo, no loud entourage. He dressed simply, he ordered tea, and yet the most powerful men in the city came to him. Not because he demanded attention, but because he withheld it. You see, when you remove yourself from the dance of approval, people lean in. When you don't explain yourself, they wonder why. When you don't react, they fear what you're thinking. This is the mirror effect. Give them nothing, and they will project everything. To outsmart everyone, the first rule is this: hide the game you're playing. Let them think you're slow. Let them think you're soft. Let them think you don't know what they know, because in that underestimation lies your greatest leverage. The moment they believe they understand you, they prepare for a version of you that doesn't exist. And while they train for battle under the sun, you strike when the moon is high and the guards are asleep. Let me say it again, because you must remember this: deception is not dishonor, it is defense. Machiavelli never taught men to be cruel without reason. He taught them to be unriddable. He knew that visibility makes you a target, predictability makes you prey. So when you post your dreams, when you tweet your plans, when you explain your every wound to strangers online, understand this: you are not inspiring people, you are arming them with knowledge of your weaknesses, arming them with access to your map, arming them with strategies to defeat you before you even arrive. Ask yourself this: do you want connection or do you want control? The man who chooses connection at all costs will drown in the applause of the masses, never noticing that their hands also hold knives. The man who chooses control will walk alone, yes, but he will not bleed. We live in a time where men are told to share, overshare, express everything. But the strategist does not express, he suppresses. He does not explode, he calculates. He does not react, he engineers responses in others. And so I ask you now, who are you trying to impress? Because every time you answer that question with action, you give away a piece of your power. Power is never in what is seen, it is in what is sensed, but never confirmed. The room falls quiet when a powerful man walks in, not because he's loud, but because he isn't. Because he gives nothing, and they don't know what he's thinking. Because he's watching, and they can feel it. This is not mystery for the sake of seduction. This is silence as a shield, as a weapon, as a disguise. The man who moves like fog, who speaks like the wind, who vanishes before you understand his shape, that is the man you fear. That is the man who wins, not through chaos, but through quiet. And now we sharpen the blade. The illusion of control is the favorite drug of the overconfident. They assume that because they see you, they know you, that because they've read your posts, watched your videos, heard your laughter, or tracked your habits, that they have mapped your soul. But a true strategist never lets the map reflect the territory. He lets them chart illusions while he moves underground. Let them think the castle is there, while you build the real one behind the mountain. The moment they believe they can anticipate you, you must already be somewhere else. This is the principle of controlled misdirection. The predator wears the mask of prey. The king pretends to be a servant. The master plays the fool until the game reaches its final hour. Let them study your shadows while you orchestrate the storm. Now understand this clearly. Intelligence alone will not make you invisible. Cleverness, wit, charm, all can be weapons, yes, but a weapon unused is no threat. The real power is restraint, the discipline to let the world speak while you say nothing, the courage to be underestimated, the patience to strike only when the silence has grown too loud to ignore. Restraint is the signal of true power. The dog that barks does not bite. The man who talks too much is rarely the one to fear. But the man who listens, the man who observes, the man who waits while others exhaust themselves in noise, that man owns the moment. Machiavelli understood this. He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. But what he also knew, what he practiced, was far more subtle, that the illusion of openness disarms more men than the blade. Smile, nod, reveal just enough to create a shape, but never the whole form. Reveal a crack, and they'll believe they see the foundation. Reveal a story, and they'll think they've read the entire book, but the pages remain hidden, and so you move. This is how the strategist lives, behind layers. A man of many rooms, and only a select few ever see past the foyer. Most men will sell their entire soul for the illusion of connection. They will trade silence for a comment, trade mystery for applause, trade strategy for belonging. But in doing so, they hand over the only currency that truly matters: unpredictability. Once they can predict you, they can preempt you, and once they can preempt you, they don't need to fear you. So make them guess, make them wonder, make them talk behind your back, because you gave them nothing to speak about face to face. And when they finally realize they were never part of your true design, it will be too late. The move will already be made, the throne already claimed, the empire already formed, not with noise but with precision, not in public but in private. Not through shared emotion, but through surgical calculation. There was a Roman general who won every battle without ever stepping into the front lines, not because he feared war, but because he studied it. He moved his pieces quietly, methodically. His enemies prepared for the clash of swords, while he attacked their food supply. They sharpened their blades, while he poisoned their wells. They waited for the battle, but the war was already over. That is how you win, not when they see you coming, but when they don't even realize the game has begun. Now let's pivot, because here's where most men fail. They confuse silence with passivity. They think withholding is cowardice. They think not responding is weakness. But they forget, a coiled spring looks dormant too, until it snaps with force that no one was prepared to absorb. You must cultivate that tension, that quiet pressure, that sense that you are always calculating something, but never saying what, because people don't fear what they know. They fear what they can't read. This is not about being antisocial. It is about being unreadable, not rude, not hostile, just unknowable. You walk into a room, you shake hands, you smile, you listen, but you give away nothing. No opinions unless asked, no stories unless strategic, no truths unless weaponized. They leave the room remembering you, but they can't explain why. That is the mark of the quiet strategist. The world is addicted to speed, to shouting, to showing, but your edge is slowness, stillness, calculation. You are not late, you are waiting. You are not absent, you are observing. You are not confused, you are watching everyone else confuse themselves. Do you understand? The man who reveals nothing controls everything. Let the loud ones burn themselves for attention. Let the critics exhaust themselves on shadows. Let the world demand your transparency. You give them silence, and in that silence, they will imagine mountains, armies, machinations far greater than anything you've actually done, because in the absence of signal, the mind projects fear, and fear is power. But silence alone is not the weapon, it's the sheath. The hidden blade is your mind. A strategist is not merely someone who withholds, he orchestrates. He doesn't just wait, he watches, deciphers, records. He gathers patterns, flaws, rhythms. He lets others believe they've won something. Your trust, your time, your clarity, and yet every word they received was planted, every gesture rehearsed. To outsmart everyone, you must train yourself to become a mirror, polished, still, revealing only what they cast upon you. Say little, and they will reveal themselves. Stay calm, and they will project chaos. Maintain composure, and they will start to unravel. Because the truth is this: people do not fear aggression, they fear stillness. A still mind is a loaded weapon, and when your eyes do not flinch, when your posture remains unshaken, when your tone is cold but cordial, the world starts to wonder what you know that they don't. That's your advantage. Think of power as a room with two doors. One door is loud, wide open, flooded with light, filled with noise and people desperate to be seen. The other door is closed, dimly lit, silent. The average man rushes toward the first, but the ones who matter, the thinkers, the leaders, the real threats, they pause, they look again, they sense the difference, and they choose the second door. Why? Because real power does not invite, it waits. It does not declare, it decides. It does not compete. It watches the competition and bends the rules from the shadows. Machiavelli understood this when he said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand." Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Understand this well. Your appearance is your armor. It is your design. But your true hand must remain hidden. Your knowledge, your goals, your full strength, keep them buried beneath layers of misdirection, timing, and choice. If they see all of you, they can beat you. But if they see only what you choose, you've already won. The loud man plays his entire hand in the first round. He wants to impress. He wants to dominate. He wants them to know he's strong. But strength displayed is strength tested, and more often than not, broken. Now let me paint a picture. There's a meeting room, a negotiation table, 4 men. One speaks endlessly, bragging about deals, contacts, capital. Another interrupts constantly, desperate to sound sharp. A third nods, agrees, flatters, a lapdog in a tailored suit. And then there's you. You speak once, maybe twice. You ask one question, perfectly timed, then silence, and they shift. They glance at you, suddenly uncertain. Why so quiet? What does he see that we don't? That moment, that flicker of doubt, is your entry point. You've already destabilized the room without raising your voice, because true intelligence doesn't need volume, it needs timing. You are not there to be liked. You are there to read. You are not there to win arguments. You are there to win control. And so the meeting ends. They remember your question more than the hour of chatter. They remember your calm more than the chaos. They walk away unsure of your position, and that uncertainty is leverage, because when they don't know your angle, they cannot prepare a counter, and the next time, they approach differently. They watch you more closely. They speak more carefully. They offer you more, hoping to earn clarity, but they won't get it. Not yet. This is how you build mystique. Not by trying to be mysterious, but by never playing the full card, by staying just one layer deeper than they expect. One thought quieter, one reaction slower. Mystique is not about darkness, it's about delay. It's not about being strange, it's about being controlled. The moment you become fully readable, you become fully vulnerable. And so I repeat, never give them your full hand. Let them study your footsteps while you change the path. Let them guess your next word while you choose silence. Let them expect a storm while you become the wind that passes unseen, but shifts everything in its wake. Do not speak unless it advances your position. Do not reveal unless it creates confusion. Do not move unless it forces them to recalculate. To outsmart everyone, you must become uncatchable, not by speed but by shape-shifting. One moment you're agreeable, the next unreadable. One day helpful, the next distant. They never know if you're an ally, a rival, or something entirely outside the frame, and that is the key. Most people play the game, some try to cheat the game, but the strategist rewrites the rules entirely and plays in a language only he understands. That's you now, the architect of outcomes, the silent rewriter of destinies. And now we enter the phase they never expect. The moment when silence becomes motion. You've been still, you've been quiet, you've been unreadable, and they've grown used to it. That too is part of the plan, to condition the world into thinking you are dormant, passive, safe. But the strategist never sleeps. He calculates in silence so that his strike needs no explanation. This is where timing enters, not as a convenience, but as a weapon. Most people act when they feel ready. Most people respond when provoked. But the strategist moves when the opponent is unguarded, not when it feels good. He waits, not because he lacks courage, but because he understands that victory bought with patience is always more total, more silent, more clean. Power is not just in the action, it's in the delay. Imagine a wolf that studies its prey for days, pacing quietly through the trees. It doesn't lunge the first time it sees weakness. No, it watches the habits, the terrain, the wind, And when it finally moves, there's no sound, no roar, just teeth, and silence again. That is how the strategist strikes, not with anger, with inevitability. They never saw it coming, not because they weren't looking, but because you gave them nothing to look for. This is the danger of underestimation. You build it, you cultivate it, you let them believe in their superiority. You nod, you agree, you listen to their advice, you let them finish their sentences, and the entire time, you're calculating the pivot point. And when it comes, you move once, and everything changes. You don't need 10 actions, you need one, perfectly placed. You don't need permission, you need position, and position is earned in the shadows. Machiavelli would call this virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but a force of personal power, timing and command. It is the quality of a man who shapes fortune rather than follows it, and it is only accessible to those who can delay gratification, suppress reaction, and act with surgical force at the perfect moment. Most men are too loud to be dangerous, too reactive to be strategic, too addicted to movement to recognize the power of stillness. But not you. You've built in silence. Now you begin to reveal, not everything, just enough, just a glimpse of what's coming. A move here, a pivot there, and suddenly, the room shifts. They notice, not because you announced it, but because the tone changed when you entered, because the energy bent when you spoke, because your silence, which once felt neutral, now feels charged. That's the second phase of power, the shift from unreadable to undeniable. You no longer hide, you reveal intentionally. Each word is placed like a blade on the table, not to threaten, to remind. A strategist doesn't raise his voice, he lowers it and watches everyone lean in. He doesn't need presence, he creates gravity. Others orbit, he moves once, and the system reorganizes. This is the moment when the world begins to recalibrate around you. You don't push, you don't chase, you become the thing that others can't ignore, and they won't even know why, because you've controlled your visibility, because you've timed your entrance, because while they were playing for applause, you were designing your empire, one invisible brick at a time. Now, they want to understand you. They study your pauses, they dissect your words, they listen to your silence, and imagine it's filled with meaning. They make you myth before they ever meet you. But you remain calm, you remain grounded, you remain focused, because true power is not proven, it is carried. It does not need confirmation, it creates consequence. The fool shows his resume, the master moves, and history updates itself. You are no longer fighting for control, you are setting the rhythm, and that's the final illusion, that you're still playing the game. But the truth is, the game has already been won, not by domination, but by design, not by being right, but by being prepared, not by being visible, but by being unavoidable. And now, you vanish again. Not in weakness, but in mastery. Because the final phase of dominance is disappearance, strategic absence. When the power you've built begins to speak for you, you must retreat. Not in retreat, but in rule. Understand this. When the empire begins to echo your values, your style, your decisions, it no longer requires your presence. It requires your absence to grow even louder. Silence becomes legacy. Every great strategist, at the height of his rise, faces the same temptation: to bask in the spotlight, to own the victory, to proclaim himself the architect. But the greatest among them disappear into myth. Why? Because mystery sustains power longer than presence. The world forgets noise. It remembers shadows. The strategist who stays too long in the arena becomes a target. The one who steps out at the peak becomes legend. You don't need to explain your methods. You don't need to reveal your blueprints. You don't even need to respond when they ask how you did it. Let them guess. Let them write books. Let them teach your silence as if it were a formula. The truth is, they'll never replicate you, because they never understood you. They only saw the surface, and that was always the point. You were never here to impress. You were here to rewrite, to change how the game is played, by never acknowledging the rules at all. Let them argue. Let them imitate. Let them praise. Let them curse. You're already building the next thing, somewhere else, in silence, again. Now think of the Roman Senate. Loud voices, long speeches, declarations of honor. But behind the curtain, one quiet man moved the levers. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need the podium. He whispered to the right ear. He sent a letter at the right moment, and entire provinces shifted hands. That is real control. Not performative, operative. Not spectacle, strategy. And once you've tasted that, the ability to reshape outcomes without ever being seen, you never go back to performance. Now let's speak plainly. What does this mean for you in the world today? It means you no longer post your wins for validation. You let your results speak in silence. It means you don't debate fools. You let time silence them for you. It means you stop explaining your moves. You make them and let others update their beliefs in private. You shift from player to unseen architect. This is where the final transformation happens. Your silence is no longer about restraint. It becomes your language. Your absence is no longer about distance. It becomes your signature. They walk into rooms where you are not present, but your fingerprints are on the walls. They sit at tables where you don't speak, but your decisions are felt in every conversation. They act bold in your silence, but hesitate the moment they imagine your gaze. This is the full circle. The strategist who once walked in shadows becomes the one who casts them. And now the weight shifts, because people no longer study you out of curiosity. They study you out of necessity. Your mystique is no longer aesthetic. It's required. They cannot proceed without accounting for you. They cannot decide without wondering what you would say or do or undo. That's the height of power. Not fame, not dominance, but presence without presence. Your voice is silent, yet it frames their thinking. Your actions are few, yet they define entire movements. You are no longer just in control of yourself, you are now embedded in their control loop. And here lies the final truth. If you've played this well, they'll never even know they lost. They'll believe it was their decision, their pivot, their new idea. But you planted the seed a year ago, and now it blooms. This is not manipulation, this is design. This is not about being smarter than them. This is about being earlier, about seeing what they can't, and moving while they still sleep. And when they wake up, the board has changed. The pieces are different, and the king they swore loyalty to now serves you. All without a speech, without a war, without a crown, only silence. And now, we close the circle. You've watched in silence. You've listened in rooms where others spoke too much. You've withheld what they begged to see, and you've acted, not for attention, but for alignment. Every move you made rewrote the rules. Every silence you kept amplified your presence. You've become what they fear without understanding why, because the greatest threat is the man who does not announce himself. The world teaches noise, urges confession, demands transparency, but the strategist declines. He remains just out of reach, just beyond comprehension, just silent enough to make the room uneasy. This is not detachment, it's design. When others demand your attention, you give them unpredictability. When they provoke your emotion, you answer with control. When they expect explanation, you offer absence. You become the paradox they can't solve, the equation that resists being balanced, the variable that shifts just before they think they understand the pattern. And so they adapt, not by defeating you, but by adjusting to you. That is the moment you are no longer just a person, but a principle. A silent force that moves through conversations, strategies, power structures. You have replaced effort with effect. You have replaced exposure with elegance. And now, as the dust settles, as the empire rises, as the silence deepens, you no longer seek victory. You embody it. No declaration, no applause, just quiet, undeniable rule. And now let me leave you with this. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you already knows that influence isn't about being loud, it's about being inevitable. That power is not in performance, but in restraint, and that the smartest man in the room is rarely the one speaking. Now tell me, are you ready to vanish, not in failure, but in design? Are you ready to lead, not from the front, but from the unseen depths? Are you willing to be misunderstood, underestimated, even forgotten, so long as your ideas remain? If this message struck something deep, if you feel the silence in your bones, then write in the comments, I choose to become unreadable. Let's see how many here are ready to disappear and still win everything. And don't forget, the next video is waiting. It's already been designed to sharpen your mind further. Click it and move in silence.